So there I was, Maya Rodriguez, age 13 and 3/4, sitting in what had to be the galaxy's most uncomfortable waiting room with my arm in a sling, watching an 8-armed purple bureaucrat shuffle through paperwork with all the enthusiasm of a DMV employee on their lunch break. Maya Rodriguez of Earth, announced Warden Bloxys, his voice carrying that special blend of boredom and superiority that only career government workers can achieve. You stand accused of the destruction of the diplomatic vessel Harmony's Dream, resulting in damages totaling 4.7 million galactic credits. I was trying to fix their navigation system, I said for probably the 100th time. How was I supposed to know that touching 2 wires together would make the whole ship explode? Your engineering is terrible, by the way. 3 of his arms waved dismissively while the other 5 continued stamping forms. Ignorance is no excuse for terrorism, young human. The Galactic Juvenile Corrections Facility has dealt with your kind before. My kind? You mean teenagers or humans? Both are equally problematic. He leaned forward, and I got a whiff of what smelled like expired fish mixed with cleaning supplies. However, we have found an effective solution to repeat offenders and dangerous individuals. The way he said solution made my skin crawl. Behind him, a holographic display flickered to life, showing what looked like a massive underground arena. In the center sat the biggest, nastiest-looking dragon I'd ever seen outside of a fantasy movie. "Meet Croxar the Destroyer," Bloxys said with what I'm pretty sure was supposed to be a menacing grin. "Our most effective rehabilitation specialist. He has never failed to permanently correct antisocial behavior." "You feed kids to a dragon? Seriously? What kind of messed up justice system is this?" "A practical one. The dragon requires sustenance, and society requires protection from dangerous individuals. It's what your species might call a win-win situation." I stared at the hologram of the dragon, who was currently gnawing on what looked like a giant space cow. You know what? This explains so much about why the galaxy is such a mess. You people have the worst problem-solving skills I've ever seen. Bloxys' eye stalk swiveled toward me with what I was learning to recognize as alien annoyance. "Your execution is scheduled for tomorrow at noon, Galactic Standard Time. I suggest you spend your remaining hours reflecting on your crimes." "Execution? I'm 13, and I have a broken arm. What's wrong with you people?" "Age is irrelevant when dealing with dangerous criminals. Your species' reputation precedes you, young human. Chaos follows wherever you go." 2 guard drones floated over to escort me to my cell, and I couldn't help but laugh. "You have no idea how right you are about that, Bloxys. No idea at all." My cellmate turned out to be a nervous little 4-eyed alien named Zek, who immediately started apologizing for everything from the temperature of the room to the color of the walls. "I'm so sorry you have to be here," he said, wringing all 4 of his hands simultaneously. "I'm Zek from Globonia Prime, convicted of pickpocketing." Well, technically it was pick-tentacling, but the translation software isn't very precise about appendage-based crimes. "Maya from Earth, convicted of trying to help." I flopped down on what passed for a bed, which felt like it was stuffed with rocks and bad decisions. "So what's the deal with this dragon thing? Please tell me it's just a scare tactic." Zek's eyes went wide, which was impressive considering he had twice as many as normal people. "Oh no, no, no. Croxar is very real. I've seen 17 inmates go to the pit in the past month. None have ever come back." 17? What kind of crime wave is happening in this place? Well, there was Blix, who got caught smuggling candy, and Vorp, who accidentally sat in the wrong chair during a diplomatic dinner. Oh, and poor Glimex, who sneezed on a government form. I sat up so fast my broken arm protested. They fed someone to a dragon for sneezing on paperwork. It invalidated the document. Very serious offense. Before I could process the sheer stupidity of that statement, a shadow fell across our cell. Standing in the doorway was what looked like a cross between a rhinoceros and a professional wrestler, except he was currently trembling like a leaf in a hurricane. "Is this the human?" he asked in a voice that could probably shatter glass. "The one going to see Croxar tomorrow?" "That's me," I said. Let me guess, you're here to threaten me or something. Oh no, no threatening. I'm Rax from Brutonia. I just wanted to say I'm sorry about your upcoming death. It seems very unfair. Zeke perked up. Rax is our cell block's gentle giant. He's here for disturbing the peace. What did you do? Start a riot? Rax looked embarrassed. I cried during a war movie. Apparently, Brutonian warriors aren't supposed to show emotion in public. Very shameful. Very shameful. I stared at him. Let me get this straight. You're built like a tank. You could probably bench press a small spaceship, and they locked you up for having feelings. It was a very sad movie. The robot dog didn't deserve what happened to it. At this point, I was beginning to understand why the galaxy was such a disaster. These people had created a justice system that made less sense than a chocolate teapot. Hey Zek, Rax, I said. Has anyone ever actually tried talking to this dragon? They both looked at me like I'd suggested juggling live grenades. Talk to Croxar? Zeke squeaked. He's a monster, a destroyer of worlds. According to who? Bloxis? The same guy who thinks sneezing is a capital offense? Just then, Captain Voss marched by our cell, his insectoid legs clicking against the metal floor in perfect military rhythm. He stopped and turned his compound eyes toward me. Prisoner Rodriguez, I trust you're prepared for tomorrow's ceremony. Ceremony? You make it sound like a party. For the facility it is. Nothing maintains order like a good public execution. The other inmates will learn from your example. Yeah, they'll learn that you people are completely insane. His mandibles clicked together in what might have been amusement. Your species' arrogance never ceases to amaze me. Tomorrow you'll discover why humans are considered a galactic pest. After he left, I turned to my new friends. So, tomorrow I'm going to meet this dragon. Anyone want to place bets on what actually happens? Rax sniffled. I hope it's quick. You seem nice. Sek patted my shoulder with two of his hands. I'll remember you fondly. I grinned. That's sweet, guys. But I think you're both going to be very surprised. The arena was packed with aliens of every shape, size, and number of limbs imaginable. Apparently, watching a 13-year-old get eaten by a dragon was prime entertainment in this corner of the galaxy. The crowd was already cheering, and I hadn't even been lowered into the pit yet. Ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary energy beings, Bloxis announced through the facility's speakers, today we witness justice in its purest form. The human terrorist Maya Rodriguez will face Croxar the Destroyer. Terrorist? I shouted up at him. I fixed your broken navigation system, badly, but still. The crowd booed. Actual booing. Like I was the villain in this completely backwards scenario. The platform I was standing on began to descend into the pit, and I got my first real look at Croxar. He was massive, easily the size of a small building, with scales that shimmered like oil slicks and eyes that glowed like molten gold. Steam rose from his nostrils, and when he moved, the ground shook. Well, I said to myself, this is either going to go very well or very badly. No middle ground here. The crowd fell silent as the platform reached the bottom of the pit. Croxar turned his enormous head toward me, and I felt the weight of his attention like a physical thing. His eyes narrowed, and he opened his mouth to reveal teeth the size of baseball bats. Instead of running or screaming like apparently every other inmate had done, I walked toward him. Hey there, big guy, I said, my voice echoing in the sudden silence. So, I'm Maya. I heard you're supposed to eat me or something, but honestly I've had a really crappy day, and I'm not really in the mood to be anyone's lunch. Croxar tilted his head, and I swear I saw confusion in those massive eyes. I mean, seriously, what kind of day have you been having? Do you actually enjoy eating terrified kids, or is this just your job? Because between you and me, your bosses up there are complete idiots. The dragon's mouth closed, and he sat back on his haunches like a giant, scaly dog. The crowd above was starting to murmur nervously. Look, I know we just met, but I've got to ask, are you actually from around here? Because you look an awful lot like the dragons from Earth mythology, and that would be one heck of a coincidence. That's when Croxar did something that made the entire crowd gasp in shock. He bowed his head. "Oh, come on." Bloxus's voice crackled over the speakers. "Croxar, what are you doing? Eat her." I looked up at the crowd of aliens, all staring down at us with expressions ranging from confusion to outright panic, then back at the dragon. "You know what, Croxar? I think we need to have a little chat." "You can understand me, can't you?" I asked, keeping my voice gentle. The great dragon nodded slowly, and when he spoke, his voice rumbled through the pit like distant thunder. "I understand you, child of Earth. It has been so very long since I heard the words of home." The crowd above erupted into chaos. Apparently, Croxar had never spoken during an execution before. "Home." I sat down cross-legged in front of him, completely ignoring the fact that I was supposed to be dragon food by now. "You're from Earth." "I am the last of the great drakes that once soared above your world's mountains. Centuries ago, I was curious about the lights in the sky. I flew too high, too far, and found myself caught in the pull of a passing ship." "You got abducted by aliens?" "Abducted, captured, sold, traded." His eyes dimmed with old pain. "I have been property for longer than your species has had written language. The Galactic Council found me useful as an executioner. Who questions the judgment of a dragon?" I felt a surge of anger that had nothing to do with my own situation. They'd been using you as their personal monster for centuries. "I am Croxar the Destroyer. I am feared across 1,000 worlds." He lowered his massive head until we were eye to eye. "But I have never harmed a single innocent soul. The criminals they send to me are kept in a chamber beneath the pit. I feed them, care for them, and when the opportunity arises, I help them escape." "Wait, what?" "All those inmates who supposedly got eaten, living peacefully on a farming colony 3 systems away. I may breathe fire, young Maya, but I am not a monster." Above us, Bloxis was shouting orders, and I could see guards scrambling around the arena's edge. Clearly this wasn't going according to their script. "So you've been running an underground railroad for wrongly convicted inmates while pretending to be their executioner?" It seemed the most efficient solution to a poorly designed system. I grinned. "You know what, Croxar? I like you. You've got style. And you, child of Earth, have the heart of a dragon. When you walked toward me without fear, when you spoke to me as an equal rather than a monster, you reminded me what it felt like to be treated with dignity." "Croxar." Bloxis's voice boomed through the arena. "Cease this conversation and complete the execution." I looked up at the warden, then back at Croxar. "You know what I'm thinking? That these aliens have made a terrible mistake. Oh, they've made several terrible mistakes, but I'm thinking we could help each other out here. You want to go home to Earth, right?" The hope flickered in the dragon's golden eyes, more than anything. "And I want to get out of this ridiculous prison and maybe rescue my new friends in the process." A noble goal. I stood up and brushed dust off my pants. "Well then, Croxar the Destroyer, how do you feel about giving these idiots a real show?" The dragon's lips pulled back in what I realized was a smile, revealing all those impressive teeth. "I thought you would never ask." "Attention all security personnel," Captain Voss's voice crackled through the facility's communication system. "The dragon is not cooperating. I repeat, the dragon is not cooperating." "You know, Voss," I called up to him as I climbed onto Croxar's back, "you might want to update your security protocols. This whole plan has some serious flaws." Croxar spread his wings, which were absolutely magnificent, and also completely terrifying if you happened to be an alien bureaucrat who thought you had everything under control. "Where are your friends housed?" he asked. "Cell block 7, level 3. Think you can find it?" "Child, I have been studying this facility's layout for decades, waiting for an opportunity exactly like this." With a powerful leap that made my stomach drop to somewhere around my knees, Croxar launched us out of the pit. The crowd scattered like startled birds as we soared over the arena seating. This is why I love humans. Crocsar rumbled as we flew through the facility's corridors, setting off every alarm system they had. You people see an impossible situation and immediately start planning something even more impossible. We prefer to think of it as creative problem solving. Security drones swarmed around us, firing stun rays that bounced harmlessly off Crocsar's scales. He responded with a controlled burst of flame that sent them spinning into the walls. Your weapons technology is also terrible, I shouted back at them. We crashed through the security barriers of cell block 7 like they were made of tissue paper. Zeke and Rax were pressed against their cell window, eyes wide with shock. Maya? Zek squeaked. You're supposed to be digested by now. Change of plans. I called as Crocsar melted their cell door with a precise flame. We're busting out of this place. Rax stared up at the dragon. Is this safe? Define safe, I said, helping them climb onto Crocsar's back, but it's definitely better than staying here. Captain Voss appeared at the end of the corridor with a squad of guards, all armed with weapons that looked like they meant business. Surrender immediately. The facility is in lockdown. Counter-offer, I shouted back. You all find new jobs because your security system is a joke. Crocsar turned toward them and spoke in a voice that shook the entire facility. I am Crocsar the Destroyer, and I am no longer your pet monster. Stand aside. The guards took one look at several tons of very annoyed dragon and decided they had urgent business elsewhere. The exit is through the main hangar, Crocsar said as we flew through the facility. Hold on tightly. Isai. Behind us, alarms wailed and emergency lights flashed. We burst through 3 more security barriers, past confused aliens who were still trying to figure out what was happening, and finally crashed through the hangar doors into open space. There's just one problem, Zek said as we soared away from the facility. Where exactly are we going? I looked down at the stars spread out below us and grinned. Zek, we're going home. Crocsar's wings caught a solar wind, and we accelerated toward the distant blue dot that was Earth. Behind us, the Galactic Juvenile Corrections Facility was probably having the worst day in its institutional history. You know, Rax said thoughtfully, I think I like humans. 3 months later, I was sitting in my backyard in Phoenix, watching Crocsar terrorize the local news crews, while trying to explain to them that no, he wasn't planning to destroy the city, he just wanted to enjoy his first Earth sunset in 800 years. Maya, my mum, called from the kitchen. There are some aliens at the door asking about diplomatic immunity and extradition treaties. Tell them I'm doing homework. I called back. Zek poked his head around the corner of the house. He'd taken up residence in our guest room and was currently working on a memoir titled My Life as an Intergalactic Criminal. Publishers were fighting over it. The Galactic Council sent another delegation, he said. They want to negotiate. What do they want this time? Crocsar back you in prison, and a formal apology for embarrassing them. I snorted. Yeah, that's not happening. Rax emerged from behind the pool house where he'd been helping my dad with yard work. Apparently, Brutonian strength was very useful for moving large rocks, and my dad had never been happier with a landscaping project. The news people want to interview you again, he said. Something about a documentary on human-dragon diplomacy. I'll do it if they promise to stop calling me the Dragon Whisperer. That's the dumbest nickname ever. Crocsar landed in the backyard with his usual ground-shaking thud, scattering the news crews. The delegation has left, he announced. I may have mentioned that Earth dragons have a very different perspective on uninvited guests. Did you threaten them? I simply breathed in their direction. They chose to interpret that as threatening. My phone buzzed with another news alert. Apparently, alien juvenile detention facilities across the galaxy were being investigated after our escape sparked a series of prison breaks. Turns out, when you give desperate inmates hope and a really bad example to follow, things tend to get interesting. You know what's funny? I said, scratching behind Crocsar's ear ridge. They were so worried about humans being dangerous that they created a situation where we'd have to be dangerous to survive. A self-fulfilling prophecy, Croxar agreed. Although I suspect your species would have found a way to cause chaos regardless. Hey, we prefer to call it problem-solving. The doorbell rang again, and Mon's voice carried across the yard. Maya. There's someone here from the State Department, the Pentagon, NASA, and something called the Interspecies Relations Committee. Tell them I'm grounded. Zek grinned with all four eyes. You know they're never going to leave you alone, right? You've become the unofficial human ambassador to the galaxy. Yeah, well, they should have thought of that before they threw a kid to a dragon. I looked up at the sky, where 3 alien ships were maintaining what they probably thought was a discreet surveillance orbit. Tomorrow there would probably be more negotiations, more meetings, and definitely more requests for interviews. But tonight I was just a 13-year-old girl sitting in her backyard with her dragon friend, watching the stars come out and thinking about how sometimes the best way to solve an impossible problem is to ignore the rules entirely. Hey Croxar, I said. Want to help me with my science project tomorrow? What's the topic? Applied physics and the aerodynamics of dragon flight. His eyes lit up with golden fire. I thought you would never ask. Somewhere in the galaxy, Warden Bloxies was probably still trying to figure out where he went wrong. The answer, of course, was simple. Never underestimate a determined teenager, especially one with a broken arm and a really bad attitude about unfair treatment. But then again, that's humans for you. We've been ruining other people's plans and making friends with monsters since day one. And we're just getting started.